To all of you, when did you first encounter Smith's work? What was the first moment?
So, shall I go?
Yeah.
So I've been a photographer in my life, and it's funny. I think Johnny's suffering from this now, and he's so good. He's such a talented photographer. But now after making this movie, it feels like we can't. Like I don't feel like a photographer because, we've been around such greatness in photography that it's a different sport. It's a different thing. But so, Gene Smith is one of those artists that you just grew up being aware of. I grew up in Manhattan. I've been around the world. I've traveled. Now I teach at New York University. I teach a course that's sort of adjacent to this sort of work. And Gene Smith is always a guy that that's a touchstone for truth and commitment. And so I don't remember when, other than to say that Gene Smith is as a person, as an artist, not knowing anything about his life or anything else, but as an artist, I've been familiar with his work for as long as I can remember.
I remember seeing Smith's work, I suppose, in my, maybe early 20s or something, and thought, there's certain you're looking at, like, there are photographers that you look at their work, and then you look at photographers like Eugene Smith, who were war correspondents, who would embed themselves, and just, potentially get, wake up dead, or get ripped apart, and that's a heavy lesson to learn real quick. That's a heavy sort of thing to learn, and he was so dedicated and such a dedicated, passionate artist that he would sacrifice himself, and he knew that was the truth, like the truth of his moment in that moment. That's one thing. When he captures something, that truth is going to remain forever. So he was able to make a solid statement, and make a difference in the upcoming generations. How many war correspondents, journalists, photographers, all were inspired by the work of Gene Smith and taking those risks. So, and obviously there are certain images that just are seared onto your brain and you'll never forget them. The image of Tomoko is something I would akin. It's like,
Pietà.
Yeah, it's the Pietà. It's as great as, it's as honest, it's as pure as anything.
And Hiro, how aware were you of the tragedy at Minamata? Was it something that you were aware of, and what sort of research did you do for the role?
Yeah, when it happened, I was a kid, so I didn't know anything, truth or depth. Then, after I read the script, tried to research some books or footage, and then I got a shock. And just leading to nowadays, it's a great message to say to the world. I felt that during the researching, and I should do this, I thought.
And this film was very much about sort of the bravery of speaking truth to power, and that feels like a very timely message given the state of the world. I just wondered if that was something all of you were interested in.
Without question.
Me, I have infinitely more faith in the people than the den leaders and the upper echelon who are kind of meant to look after its children and all that stuff. Well, I think the people will at some point realize that en masse they have far more power than any upper echelon, uber rich, bajillionaire. The people, because the people have the power to stop buying their products. They have the power to not listen to, this rhetoric. They have the power. So it's people like Eugene Smith and many like him that I admire for continuing forward, for fighting the fight without any care of repercussions. Eugene Smith was a complex fella, and he was bitter, and he'd been through everything, and he was in pain, and he was isolated, and all that. But ultimately, he was a hypersensitive human being who just needed to cover himself in cactus to protect that. But he chose to, leave that all behind when he dove into Minamata. I'm sure it was a very moving and painful experience for him, to see that.
And never give up. I think that's the other thing. Like,
yeah.
Across each of these groups, I mean, you mentioned truth to power. I mean, for me and for all of us, there's so many different parts of the film that were important to us. But on that subject, you had a group of people on the ground speaking truth to power, trying, coming together, showing us what the rest of us should be doing around the world. Standing up and going against what, maybe is. Hero's character in particular is he's the real hero of the film, who's standing up and saying, "Come on, like we have to do something. We have to get out there. We have to fight. We have to do it. We have to protect other people. It's not just about us." And then you have Gene, who's in his own way, speaking truth to power. And then you have Bill Nighy's character, who even in the big perch up at the top of the building has this incredible responsibility because he believes that what they're doing at Life magazine matters, that it's important, that, and it's not just the little guy versus the big guy. I think at every rung of this pecking order, we need people that care, that are trying to do that same thing. And so from the most grassroots level, all the way to, up the chain, you need that sort of connectivity and people that are doing that. And for Bill's character, he's sitting there doing something kind of behind the scenes to go get this story to happen. At the same time, he's freaking out about the fact that he's forced to put these crappy ads and these bad stories and Raquel Welch on the cover and roller skates and things that make no sense.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.